Hello YouTube, my name is Nye. Today you joined me in somebody's living room in Spain. I'm still on lockdown, my flights keep being cancelled, so I'm still here. But the upload schedule must go on, so here I am with today's folk friend video. I'm afraid due to the lack of computer and video editing software, this one's going to be a little bit less high-tech than my more recent uploads have been. But hopefully there's still some good stuff to be learnt in it. I'm going to be talking about how you can use your ears to pick the right tunes for a tune in a major key. So in this tune I'm going to be using my tune loop video for Out on the Ocean, which you can find linked in the box down below and in the little card in the corner of the screen. Basically in that video I just played a jig in G major and then left it looping on the loop pedal for ages and ages so people could practice along with it. And what we're going to be doing is having a look at how you can listen to that tune and put chords in the right places and then make those chords more interesting by using substitutions, jazzy chords, all that kind of stuff. In order to understand the stuff I'm talking about in this video, it would help if you already knew how to harmonise the major scale and about how the modes work. So you can find all that out in my previous two videos, which are like the Complete Beginner's Guide to Music Theory for Celtic Music, and they're linked in the box down below as well. But just to recap what I said in those videos, in a major key there are 7 available notes. There's 7 notes in a scale, and then the 8th note is the one you started on. So those 7 notes in a major key are called its key signature. And you can find that out very quickly using the amazing mode wheel, which you can also buy in the box down below or in a card in the corner of the screen. But you can also just memorise it. For each of those 7 notes in the key signature, there is 1 chord available as well. And those chords go in a pattern which is the same for every single major key. That pattern is 1, 4 and 5 are major, and 2, 3 and 6 are minor. And then the 7th chord is diminished and sounds a bit weird, so folkies don't really use it, so we won't worry about chord 7. So effectively, for a tune in a major key, you need to memorise the key signatures. So let's say D major, for example, takes F sharp and C sharp. So its scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and then you're back to D again. And then you go 1, 4 and 5 are going to be major chords. So D is 1. E, F sharp, G is 4, so G major is another chord you can have. A is 5, so A major, and then 2, 3 and 6 would be minor, so E minor, F sharp minor, and 6 is B minor, and then C sharp diminished, but we're not using that one. So it's a pretty simple principle, but it takes a little bit of memorising, and that's why this is really handy, because if I put this on D Ionian, like so, you can see there it tells you all the chords just by going around the middle there of the segments. So it's a pretty handy little device. Ionian, by the way, is just another way of saying a major key. The old modal names are just another way of talking about the same thing. So anyway, this tune is in the key of G major, so if I turn my little window here on Ionian to G, D, E, F, G Ionian, that's going to remind me of all the chords available to go with this tune. The main ones are the 3 major ones, chords 1, 4 and 5. In this video we're only going to be dealing with tunes in major keys, but actually chords 1, 4 and 5 are always your main chords, and in the next part of this video I'm going to be talking about how you can apply this to other types of tune as well. For our tune in G major then, chords 1, 4 and 5 are G major, C major and D major. I once read a book written by someone called Sarah McQuaid, if I remember rightly, which said that a backing guitarist should always listen to a tune at least once through before trying to play along with it. And I think that's really good advice. So when you first hear a tune, ideally you probably have an idea how that tune goes anyway because you've heard it before. But if you're trying to play along with a tune you've not heard before, some people would say just don't do it. personally, I wouldn't say that. I'd say folk music's pretty formulaic, and as long as you've had a listen through and worked out where the chords fit before you start trying to accompany it, then you'll be alright. So what you want to do when you first listen to a tune is work out where chords 1, 4 and 5 go. There are some rules which basically all Irish music and Celtic music generally follow. The first rule is that if you imagine a tune being in blocks of 8 bars, every 7th foot tap, so at the end of every 4th bar, it's going to go from chord 5 back to chord 1. So for our tune in G major, if I play it from where I start playing the tune in the video, I'm going to tap along, and every 7th tap there's going to be a chord 5. So let's get into the tune. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, chord 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, chord 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, chord 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, chord 5. So you can see there at the end of every 4 bars, there's always a bar of chord 5. And this is true for every single Irish tune, more or less every single Celtic tune. Pretty much all English folk music, French folk music generally pretty much all does this. It's less rigid in European and English folk music, but in Irish and Scottish and so on, Celtic music, always chord 5 back to chord 1 at the end of every section. So yeah, every 7th foot tap is always going to be chord 5. How long you stay on chord 5 for changes. So the first time you get to your 7th foot tap and you do chord 5, it remains chord 5 for the whole of the bar. The second time you do your 7th foot tap and you get to chord 5, it only does half a bar of chord 5 and then it switches back to chord 1. The reason for that is that Celtic music comes in sections of 8 bars. In the case of this tune and pretty much most tunes, it'll be 8 bars and then it'll repeat those 8 bars, and then there'll be another section of 8 bars which also repeats. So we call those two sections the A part and the B part. If you imagine those 8 bars, that's 2 sections of 4 bars, and at the end of each of those sections it goes 5-1. Right? Still with me on this one? So the first 4 bars that you do, that's my 7th foot tap, the first one that I get to. I'm going to make that whole bar chord 5. Then the second time I do it, that is the end of an 8 bar section. So if I did a whole bar of chord 5 there, I'd be ending a section on a chord which is not my root chord, and it wouldn't sound very finished. The listener would listen to it and go, yeah, and, you know. So if you want to make your section sound finished, you go from your chord 5 back to chord 1. That's the perfect cadence. It's been used since time immemorial to mark that something is finished. So yeah, so that's what you do. The first time you get to your 7th foot tap, you have a whole bar of chord 5. The second time you get to your 7th foot tap, you go from chord 5 back to chord 1. That demarks the end of a section. Then that section repeats, you do the same thing again, and so on ad infinitum. That's the first rule of folk music. So, beyond that, we know where chord 1 goes because it goes at the start of the tune and it goes at the end of the tune, and we know where chord 5 goes because it goes where I've just said on the 7th foot taps. Chord 4 has sections where it has to be as well. Now if you listen to this tune, I'm just going to play the B part. I'll leave it running from where it was. When we get to the start of the B part, there's a bit that sounds chord 4-y. I'll tell you exactly what I mean by sounding chord 4-y in a minute, but it sounds very chord 4-y. It can't be anything else. So that bit at the start there, it goes do 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 do. I'll give you a little demonstration of that. So we're in G major, chord 1 is G. Bum ba da 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 da. So that's my chord 5 on the 7th foot tap. Bum ba da 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 da. Then it does all the A part again. Bum ba 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 bum. 7. Bum ba 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 ba. 5 back to 1. So that's all of the A part. Then the B part starts da 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 da. So let's put our chord 1 under that and see how it sounds. Da 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 da. All right, but have a listen to this. Da 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 da. So much better. So that bit has a very definite chord 4 sound to it, and chord 1 sounds wrong in comparison. I'll tell you why that is now. If you imagine the notes of a G major chord, you've got G, B and D. If you imagine the notes of chord 4 in G major, you've got C, E and G. So there's 2 notes in chord 4 which aren't in chord 1. Chord 1's got G, B and D, and chord 4 has C and E, which those notes don't appear in chord 1, they only appear in chord 4. That B part starts on a really long E note. Because it's got a big long E note at the start of a bar, and there's no E in chord 1, but there is an E in chord 4, it sounds very much like it needs chord 4 there. And if you think about a jig, because a jig's going like ba 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 ba, those dominant beats, those are the ones that affect what chord has to go in that bar. The little notes in between are really just linking together those dominant beats. So you need to listen to the dominant beats of each bar, and for each half a bar you can choose more or less on the basis of that dominant beat note what the chord is going to be. That's pretty much how it works. It is quite simple. So yeah, principles. You've got rule 1, chord 5 goes at the ends of every 4 bars. Rule 2, chord 5 goes back to chord 1 at the end of every 8 bars. Rule 3, you can divide the tune up into sections. You've got sections that are chord 1-ish, which is going to be most of the tune. Occasionally you get a section that sounds very much like it has to be chord 4 because it has a lot of a note in it which is only in chord 4 and doesn't appear in chord 1. But you don't have to worry about looking at a bit of paper and trying to read off which notes are the dominant ones and thinking about whether they're in chord 4. Just trust your ears. If you play chord 1 over something and it sounds a bit like not quite right, try chord 4 and see if it's better, and if it is better, remember where it was and do it again next time. It's that simple. The more times you get it wrong and then change it to be right, the more times your ears will recognise that that's where those kind of things fit. So yeah, that's basically how you do it. You just work out where the sections are, and you can do that by tapping your feet along with the tune. And then listen through once, work out where chord 4 sections are. And that way you've got your tune divided up into chord 1 sections, chord 4 sections, and little bits where chord 5 goes every 7th foot tap. And that's it. It really is pretty simple. The other thing that you can do then, I said there were 6 chords available and that the other 3 were minor ones. Well, once you know where your 3 major chords go, you can swap them out for substitutes for them. So the first thing you can do is, if you've been playing chord 1 for a long time and you're getting bored of playing it, even if it's not a section that sounds particularly like it needs to be chord 4, you can always switch to chord 4 if you want to. The reason for this is that if it's a chord 1 section, it's fairly vague in its tonality, and it doesn't matter whether you put 1 or 4 over it. You have to start the tune on 1, but then you can switch to 4 and it'll be fine. It kind of affects the mood a little bit, which chord you put behind it, but it will never sound wrong. However, if there's a section that sounds definitely chord 4-y, then it has to be chord 4 or something that's related to it there. Now the other thing you can do is switch to related minors. For any major chord, it's got a related minor which is 3 semitones down from it. So G major, for example, is related to E minor, C major is related to A minor, and they're the two that we're going to use in this video. So in this tune, if you've got a big section at the beginning, like in the A part for example, we said there were no chord 4 sounding sections, so it's just G, 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 D, D. You can take one of those bars of G and change it to E minor, and that'll be just to add a bit of variation. And the reason you can do that is because E minor is related to G major. The reason that E minor is related to G major, I can actually show you on the guitar. A G chord has got G, B and D in it, and you just stack them up. That gives you your G chord. Well, an E chord, an E minor chord, has got E, G and B in it. So that's 2 notes in common with G major, therefore is more or less the same, except it's got 1 extra note added. So here's E minor, and here's G major. So you can swap those two over. They'll both sound good. They'll sound a little bit different. It gives the tune a slightly different flavour. If you switch to more related minors, you've made your backing a bit more miserable. If you use more major chords, obviously it's brighter and cheerier. But changing between those two makes your life more interesting as a guitarist. The other thing is, if you've got a chord 4-y section, you can change to chord 4's related minor. So C major, if you go back 3 semitones, is related to A minor. So if you're playing C major, for example, at the start of the B part, you can put your A minor in there to make your life more interesting. You could even do away with the C altogether and just use A minor if you wanted to make a sort of miserable version of the tune. Yeah. So I'm going to just let the tune play a little bit, and I'm going to play a few different versions of my chords and try, hopefully, and say what I'm doing as I do it. Now, I will say I'm not very good at talking and playing at the same time, so if it all goes terribly wrong, then sorry about that. Normally I'd edit it all together, but being stuck, I can't do that here, I'm afraid, because I've only got my ancient laptop, which isn't capable of doing anything more than writing Word documents and playing YouTube videos. So, yeah, here we go. G, G, D for chords. So G, G, chord 5 back to chord 1, A part again, G, D, chord 5, G, chord 5 back to chord 1. B part has to start on C, back to G, 7th foot tap, G, another chord 4 bit, G, 5 back to 1. Starts on C, G, chord 5, G, there's another little C bit, G, chord 5 back to chord 1. Right, I'll play it through again. This time I'm going to do some swapping. So I'm going to, where I play G for a long time at the start, I'm going to stick some C bits in there or some E minor bits in there. And because chord 1 and chord 4 are interchangeable, that means you can put chord 4's related minor in place of chord 1 as well. So basically, if you've got a chord 1 section, you can play chord 1, which is G, chord 1's related minor, which is E minor, chord 4 can overwrite chord 1, so that's fine, so that's C, and chord 4's related minor as well, which is A minor. So for the first part of the tune, you can have any of those 4 chords, as long as you have your chord 5's in the right places, it'll sound absolutely fine. For the second part, you're a bit more rigid because there's two little bits where it sounds very definitely C, so you can only have C or A minor in those bits, but for the rest of it you can switch between any of the above. If you look in the box down below as well, I have posted several different versions of the chords that you can try out to see all these principles in action and hopefully hear a little bit about how they change the feeling of the tune as well. But yeah, here's one more run through with some slightly more interesting chords. Chord 4, chord 5, 1, 4, 5, 1's related minor, 4's related minor, 5, 1's related minor, 4, 5 back to 1, 4 for the start of the A part, 1's related minor, 5, 1, 4, 1, 5 back to 1, 4, 1's related minor, 5, 1, 4, 1, and 5 back to 1 to finish with. So that was just a kind of very quick speed run through the ways that you pick the right chords for a major key. I'll just run you through the key takeaways for this video once more. The first thing is work out what key you're in, work out what the key signature is, and work out what chords are available. That is quicker and easier to do if you have one of my amazing mode wheels, which you can buy in the card in the corner of the screen, or make one yourself, you know, or just write them down. But whatever way you choose to learn the key signatures, they're really useful things to memorise, so definitely try and do it. You can find good ways to do that on my previous videos as well. My guides to music theory, which are linked down below. Step number 2, work out the chords. 1, 4 and 5 are going to be your main ones. Think what they are first and then listen through to the tune and work out where they go. 1 always goes at the beginning, 5 goes on every 7th foot tap. At the ends of a section you go from 5 back to 1 to make it sound finished, and then you just need to listen to where chord 4 goes. So that's the second step. The third step is to remember that any time you're playing a chord, you can swap to its related minor to make it more interesting. Its related minor is always 3 semitones back from it. And the last thing to remember is that if you've been playing chord 1 for a bit, you can switch to chord 4 and it'll overwrite it just fine, it'll sound nice. But if it's a chord 4 sounding bit, a chord 4 sounding bar I should say really, then it has to be chord 4 or chord 4's related minor. So anytime you're playing chord 1, you can play chord 1, chord 1's related minor, chord 4 or chord 4's related minor. Anytime you're playing chord 4, you can play chord 4 or its related minor. Chord 5 always goes on the 7th foot taps, and it always goes 5-1 at the end of sections. And that is everything you need to know to get perfect chord progressions for Celtic tunes in major keys every time. This has been a bit of a speed run because of the lack of video editing facilities, so I hope you can still get something out of it. I'll put some timestamps in as well for going back over the video and sort of digesting the content in little chunks. It is a lot to take in all at once, but just practice using chords 1, 4 and 5 in the right places and doing that by ear with different tunes. If you look on my channel as well, Folk Friend, you can find all sorts of tune loops that you can practice along with. Well yeah, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be running through in my next video how you can apply this to the other modes, minor keys and Mixolydian tunes. And there's going to be loads more great tutorial content coming very soon. Hopefully I'll be back in the UK, back to my whizzy computer in 3 weeks or so when the planes start running again. Fingers crossed. If you would like to prevent me from running out of money, you can buy a mode wheel or my ebook. My ebook's got all this stuff in it in much more detail, as well as like everything else you need to know to play Celtic music like a pro. You can find that linked at the end of the video, and I think that is everything for this week. Folk Friend t-shirts, you can still buy them, but they're not going to be posted until the end of the coronavirus faffage. So if you'd like to pre-order one, check the link down below, but do bear in mind postage might take several months depending how long we're on lockdown for. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again for more clips very, very soon.